My beloved child, pause for a moment and listen closely. Set aside the noise around you, quiet the thoughts competing for your attention, and allow your heart to grow still. I am speaking to you because I have seen what you have been carrying, and I know how deeply it has affected you. I have watched you press through days when you felt emotionally drained, physically exhausted, and uncertain how much longer you could keep going. I have seen you rise each morning and fulfill your responsibilities, even when something inside you wanted to withdraw from everything. Others may have noticed your strength, your patience, or the smile you placed on your face, but I saw what lay beneath the surface. I saw the weariness you concealed, the questions you avoided speaking aloud, and the pain you tried to manage without becoming a burden to anyone else. You have often felt that no one truly understood the full weight of your experience. You tried to explain parts of it, but words never seemed sufficient. Some people listened without understanding. Others offered quick answers to wounds they had never carried. There were moments when you needed comfort but received silence, moments when you needed loyalty but experienced distance, and moments when you needed someone to remain beside you but found yourself standing alone. I saw every one of those moments. I saw the disappointment you swallowed because you did not want to create conflict. I saw the tears you wiped away before anyone could ask what was wrong. I heard the prayers you whispered when your voice was barely strong enough to speak. I heard you ask whether I still saw you, whether I remembered you, and whether your cries had reached me. My child, they reached me. Not one prayer disappeared into emptiness. Not one tear fell beyond my attention. Not one night of sorrow was hidden from me. Even when you felt completely alone, you were never outside my presence. I was near when your thoughts became restless and your heart felt heavy. I was near when you lay awake replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, and wondering how everything had become so difficult. I was near when fear entered your mind and told you that nothing would change, that you had been forgotten, and that your life would always feel this way. I was near when you forced yourself to take one more step, complete one more task, and face one more day. You may not have recognized me because you expected my presence to arrive in a different way. You may have looked for an immediate answer, a dramatic sign, or the sudden removal of everything causing you pain. When those things did not happen, you began to wonder whether I had become distant. But my silence was never indifference, and my hiddenness was never absence. I remained with you in ways you could not always see. When your strength was nearly gone, I sustained the small amount that remained. When your mind felt close to breaking beneath the pressure, I held you together. When despair told you to stop believing, I preserved a quiet spark of hope within you. That spark may have felt weak, but it was enough to keep you reaching toward me. It was enough to help you continue when you did not know how. I know you are tired of being told simply to be strong. I know that strength has sometimes felt less like a gift and more like a responsibility you never asked to carry. You have wondered why you always had to be the one who endured, forgave, understood, waited, and held everything together. You have poured yourself out for people who did not recognize the cost. You have given love without receiving the same care in return. You have remained faithful in places where others became careless with your heart. You have tried to do what was right, even when doing so left you feeling overlooked. I saw all of it. I saw every quiet sacrifice, every restrained response, and every moment when you chose peace while turmoil was rising within you. I saw the times you wanted to defend yourself but remained silent because you were exhausted from explaining. I saw the times you questioned your own worth because someone treated your kindness as though it had no value. Their inability to appreciate you never changed the value I placed upon you. Their absence never meant that I had abandoned you. Their misunderstanding never meant that I misunderstood your heart. I know what you intended, what you endured, and what it cost you to remain standing. I also know the questions that still trouble you. You wonder why the burden became so heavy. You wonder why relief did not come sooner. You wonder whether something within you caused the difficulty to continue. You have searched your heart, reviewed your decisions, and examined your faith, trying to discover what you might have done wrong. There were times when you blamed yourself for circumstances you could not control. There were times when you believed your struggles proved that you had failed me. Hear me clearly. Your suffering did not make you less loved. Your exhaustion did not make you less faithful. Your questions did not drive me away. I was not offended by your tears, your confusion, or your honest frustration. I would rather have you speak truthfully to me than hide behind words you do not feel. I have never required you to pretend in my presence. You do not need to appear unshaken when you are hurting. You do not need to act certain when you are afraid. You do not need to force yourself to sound hopeful when your heart is struggling to believe. Bring me the truth of where you are. I already know it, and I remain here. This moment is not ordinary because I am drawing your attention away from every voice that has made you feel unseen. I am reminding you that your life has never escaped my care. You are not a forgotten name, an unanswered prayer, or an abandoned child. I know you completely, and I have watched every part of this journey with compassion deeper than you can understand. I am speaking now because your heart needs more than another empty promise. It needs the assurance that I have been present, that I understand, and that your cries have not been ignored. So breathe slowly, release the pressure to have every answer, and remain here with me. You do not need to solve your entire life in this moment. You only need to know that I see you, I hear you, and I have not left you. The silence you feared was not the end of our conversation. I have been closer than you realized, and now I am asking you to listen, because what you believed was an empty season was never empty at all. My beloved child, now that you know I have seen every part of your struggle, I want you to understand what was happening during that long season when nothing seemed to move. You called it waiting because that was how it felt to you. You saw unanswered prayers, delayed opportunities, closed doors, and days that appeared no different from those before them. You measured the season by what had not yet happened, but I was measuring it by what was quietly being formed within you. What felt empty was not empty. What felt inactive was not inactive. What felt like a pause in your life was a place of deep preparation. You were not being punished, overlooked, or pushed aside. You were being strengthened in ways that comfort alone could never have developed. I know how difficult it was to remain faithful when you could not see any progress. You watched others move forward while your own path seemed uncertain. You saw people receive answers you had prayed for, enter relationships you desired, step into opportunities you had waited to find, and celebrate victories while you were still trying to understand your own season. You congratulated them, but sometimes their joy reminded you of what was still missing from your life. You wondered whether you had been forgotten or had somehow fallen behind. You compared your timeline with theirs and began to question your value. But your life was never meant to unfold according to someone else's schedule. I was not delaying you because you mattered less. I was working with care because what I was forming within you required time, depth, and stability. There were things you asked for that you were not yet prepared to carry without losing yourself. There were places you wanted to enter before your heart had learned how to remain steady under pressure. There were relationships you longed to keep that would have continued draining your peace. There were opportunities that looked promising from where you stood but would have pulled you away from who you were becoming. You saw only the door in front of you. I saw everything waiting behind it. You saw the immediate disappointment of being denied. I saw the pain, confusion, and damage that denial prevented. Some closed doors were not rejection, they were protection. Some endings were not evidence that you had failed, they were boundaries placed around your future. Some delays were not meant to discourage you, they were giving your character time to grow strong enough for what would eventually be required of you. I understand that this truth was difficult to recognize while you were hurting. At the time, loss simply felt like loss. Silence felt like distance. Waiting felt like being left behind. You could not see the full picture, and I did not ask you to pretend that the pain was easy. Yet even in your confusion, something important was happening. You were learning how to continue without constant reassurance. You were learning how to pray without immediately seeing an answer. You were learning that faith is not only confidence when circumstances make sense, it is also the quiet decision to remain when they do not. Every time you chose to take another step without knowing where the road would lead, endurance was being built within you. Every time you resisted the urge to abandon hope, your spirit grew stronger. Every time you survived a disappointment you once believed would destroy you, you discovered that pain could wound you without having the final word over your life. The season was teaching you discernment. Before, you sometimes accepted what looked good without asking whether it was right. You trusted words before observing character. You confused attention with love, movement with progress, and urgency with direction. Waiting slowed you down enough to see more clearly. It taught you to recognize what brings peace and what creates confusion. It showed you the difference between people who genuinely care for you and those who remain only while you are useful to them. It revealed habits that offered temporary relief but left you feeling emptier afterward. It exposed the thoughts that repeatedly pulled you toward fear. None of these discoveries were comfortable, but they were necessary. You could not grow beyond patterns you had not yet learned to recognize. The season also revealed strengths you did not know you possessed. You thought you were barely surviving, but you were learning patience. You believed you were simply trying to make it through each day, but you were developing discipline. You thought your faith was weak because it trembled, yet trembling faith continued turning toward me. Courage was forming each time you continued while afraid. Wisdom was forming each time you reflected instead of reacting. Compassion was forming because your own pain taught you to recognize pain in others. Humility was forming because you learned that you could not control every outcome. Your roots were growing beneath the surface, even when no visible fruit appeared above the ground. A tree does not become strong on the day its branches are finally seen. Its strength is established in hidden places, where its roots reach deeper into the soil and learn to remain secure through changing weather. In the same way, I was establishing you where no one could applaud you. I was teaching you to remain grounded when recognition was absent. I was separating your identity from immediate success, public approval, and the opinions of others. I did not want your confidence to depend entirely on doors opening, people choosing you, or circumstances confirming your worth. Those things can change quickly. I wanted you to know who you were even when nothing around you seemed to validate it. I wanted your trust to become deeper than temporary results. There were moments when you prayed for the season to end, but ending it too early would have interrupted what was being completed. You wanted relief while I was building resilience. You wanted an explanation while I was teaching you to trust beyond what you understood. You wanted the next chapter while I was strengthening the person who would have to live it. This was not cruelty, it was care. I was not withholding goodness from you. I was preparing you to receive what is good without allowing it to control, overwhelm, or define you. I was making room within you for greater peace, greater wisdom, and greater emotional stability. My child, do not despise the version of yourself who struggled through that season. Do not look back with shame because you were tired, confused, or uncertain. You were learning, you were becoming. Even your mistakes showed you where healing and growth were needed. Even your weakest moments taught you that you could not build your life on willpower alone. Nothing was wasted. The delays, the questions, the lonely nights, the disappointments, and the small acts of faith were all shaping you. You may not yet understand every reason behind what happened, but you no longer need to believe that the waiting was meaningless. It was not a vacant space between what you lost and what comes next. It was a sacred place where strength was quietly formed, where your vision became clearer, and where your heart was prepared for change. The season of preparation had a purpose, and now you are beginning to see that you did not emerge from it as the same person who entered it. My beloved child, the season of preparation has not been without purpose, and it will not continue forever. There comes a moment when what has been forming quietly begins to appear openly, when the work done in hidden places starts changing the path before you. That moment is now beginning. I am stepping into the circumstances that have exhausted you, confused you, and caused you to question whether anything would ever change. I am not coming merely to help you endure what has been hurting you. I am coming to alter its direction. The patterns that have continued repeating will not be allowed to define the rest of your life. The pressure that has followed you from one season into another will not remain your permanent condition. What once felt immovable is beginning to shift, and what seemed sealed beyond your reach is no longer beyond my authority. Some doors will close because they have kept you confined to places that no longer fit who you have become. You may have remained near them because they were familiar, because you invested time in them, or because you hoped they would eventually become what you needed. But familiarity does not always mean safety, and effort does not always mean something must continue. I can see where a path leads long before you reach its end. When I close what cannot sustain your future, it is not because I am taking life away from you. It is because I am redirecting you toward what can hold the peace, growth, and stability I desire for you. At the same time, doors you assumed were permanently locked will begin to open. These openings may not arrive in the form you expected. They may begin through a conversation, an unexpected connection, a new idea, a quiet opportunity, or a decision that initially appears small. Do not underestimate what begins without noise. A river may start as a narrow stream, yet still carry enough strength to reshape the land. In the same way, the changes I am bringing may seem subtle at first, but they will lead you away from the place where you have been standing still. I am arranging details you cannot yet see. I am bringing clarity to decisions that once felt impossible. I am creating movement where there has been delay and direction where there has been uncertainty. You have spent too much time wondering whether you missed your moment. You have not. What belongs within the life I am leading you toward has not passed you by. I am not limited by the timing that frightened you or by the opportunities that disappeared. I can create a new path where no path seemed available. I can place the right people, resources, and circumstances before you at the right time. You do not have to force what I am bringing together. What comes from me will not require you to betray your peace, abandon your integrity, or become someone you were never created to be. My intervention is not limited to what surrounds you. I am also reaching into the places within you that have carried the effects of everything you endured. I know that changing an external circumstance does not automatically heal the heart that lived through it. A new environment cannot, by itself, remove old fear. An open door cannot erase years of disappointment. A better opportunity cannot immediately silence the voice that expects everything good to disappear. That is why I am not only changing what is around you, I am restoring what has been wounded within you. The heaviness that has rested on your chest will not always feel this strong. The thoughts that have continued circling without resolution will begin to settle. The confusion that made every choice feel dangerous will give way to clearer understanding. You will begin to recognize that peace is returning, not because every question has already been answered, but because fear no longer controls every conclusion. I am strengthening your mind where anxiety weakened it. I am restoring hope where repeated disappointment taught you to expect the worst. I am bringing tenderness back to the parts of your heart that became guarded in order to survive. There are wounds you stopped mentioning because you assumed they had become part of your identity. You learned how to function around them, but functioning is not the same as being whole. I have not forgotten those places. I know where the pain began, what deepened it, and how long you carried it without understanding what to do with it. I am bringing healing that reaches beneath appearances. I am not asking you to deny what happened or pretend it did not matter. I am showing you that it does not have to remain in control of your emotions, your expectations, or your future. The memories may remain, but their power to overwhelm you will weaken. The story will not disappear, but it will no longer speak louder than the life that continues beyond it. Your strength is also being renewed. For a long time you have operated from exhaustion. You kept moving because your responsibilities demanded it, but you often felt as though you had nothing left to give. You relied on determination when joy was absent, and discipline when your energy was gone. Now I am restoring more than your ability to survive. I am restoring your capacity to live with expectation again. You will begin to feel interest where numbness settled in. You will notice courage returning to decisions you once avoided. Ideas you buried may return to your mind. Dreams you dismissed as unrealistic may begin to breathe again. This is not an invitation to chase every impulse or imagine that difficulty will never return. It is an assurance that difficulty will no longer be the only thing you can see. Light is entering the places where discouragement convinced you there was no future worth anticipating. I am also bringing order to areas that have felt scattered. What has been fragmented will begin to find alignment. The pieces may not come together all at once, but you will recognize that the confusion is no longer increasing. One step will lead naturally to another. The guidance you need will become clearer as you move. You have wanted the entire map before taking the next step, but I will often give you enough light for what is immediately ahead. That light will be sufficient. You do not need to understand the entire journey in order to recognize that you are no longer standing where you once were. My child, do not measure this change only by dramatic events. Restoration can appear in a peaceful night of sleep, a conversation that brings closure, the return of concentration, the courage to make a necessary decision, or the unexpected realization that something which once controlled your emotions no longer holds the same power. These are not insignificant signs. They are evidence that life is moving through you again. What I am doing will reach your circumstances, but it will also reach your thoughts, your emotions, your confidence, and your ability to hope. I am not repairing one small corner while leaving the rest untouched. I am bringing renewal into every place that has been shaped by the season you survived. The road ahead will not be a copy of the road behind you. You are not being sent back into the same cycle under a different name. I am leading you toward a life marked by greater clarity, steadiness, and peace. The change has begun, and although you may not yet see its full form, you will soon recognize that the season which once seemed endless has finally lost its authority over your future. My beloved child, as I begin changing the direction of your life, you must understand that some things cannot come with you. A new season requires more than new circumstances. It requires a willing heart, a renewed mind, and the courage to release what belongs to the past. You cannot fully receive peace while holding tightly to the fear that it will be taken away. You cannot walk freely while carrying resentment, shame, old expectations, and relationships that repeatedly pull you back into confusion. I am not asking you to release these things because they never mattered. I am asking you to release them because they have already taken enough from you. You have carried some burdens for so long that they now feel like part of who you are. You have become accustomed to expecting disappointment before anything good has time to develop. Even when life becomes calm, part of you remains alert, waiting for something to go wrong. You struggle to rest because your mind has learned to survive by constantly preparing for pain. You question kindness because you remember betrayal. You hesitate to trust because you remember how deeply trust once wounded you. These responses helped protect you during difficult times, but they cannot guide you into a life of freedom. What once helped you survive may now prevent you from receiving what is healthy, stable, and sincere. I am teaching you that wisdom is not the same as fear. Wisdom observes carefully, but fear assumes the worst. Wisdom sets boundaries, but fear builds walls so high that nothing good can enter. Wisdom remembers what happened, but fear relives it until the past feels present again. You do not have to forget your experiences in order to move forward. You need to stop allowing them to make every decision for you. The past may inform you, but it must not control you. There are conversations you have replayed countless times, imagining what you should have said, what someone should have understood, or how the outcome might have been different. Each time you return to those moments, you give yesterday fresh power over today. You cannot change what was said, undo what was done, or force another person to become accountable. You can only decide whether their actions will continue shaping your inner life. Release the need to win arguments that have already ended. Release the desire to make everyone recognize how deeply they hurt you. Some people may never understand the damage they caused. Some may deny it, minimize it, or rewrite the story to protect themselves. Their refusal to acknowledge the truth does not erase what you experienced, but neither should it imprison you. I know the truth. I saw what happened. I understand what it cost you. Let that be enough to free you from the endless effort to prove your pain. Resentment may feel like justice because it keeps the memory of the wrong alive, but it also keeps your heart tied to the person who wounded you. Forgiveness does not mean that what happened was acceptable. It does not require you to restore access to someone who has shown no change. It does not mean abandoning boundaries or placing yourself back in harm's way. Forgiveness means that you stop allowing another person's failure to occupy the center of your emotional life. You release the right to carry the offense every day, and you place justice into my hands. I know this is not always a single decision. Sometimes release must be chosen repeatedly until the grip of the past becomes weaker. Each time the memory returns, you can choose not to feed it. Each time anger rises, you can bring it to me instead of building your identity around it. Each time loneliness tempts you to return to what damaged you, remember that familiar pain is still pain. Do not mistake familiarity for belonging. Some relationships have continued only because you were afraid of being alone. Some connections have required you to silence your needs, ignore your instincts, and accept treatment you would never advise someone else to tolerate. You hoped patience would eventually create change, but patience without boundaries can become self-abandonment. You are not required to remain available to everyone who knows how to reach you. You are not obligated to keep reopening doors that have repeatedly brought disorder into your life. Love does not demand that you surrender your peace to prove your compassion. There are also habits you developed while trying to cope with pain. Some distracted you, some numbed you, some gave you a temporary sense of control. You may have filled every quiet moment with noise because silence made you uncomfortable. You may have delayed important decisions because uncertainty felt safer than the possibility of failure. You may have criticized yourself before anyone else had the chance, believing that self-rejection would protect you from rejection by others. You may have overthought every choice until even simple steps felt dangerous. These patterns did not begin because you were weak. They often began because you were trying to survive without the support you needed. But what begins as protection can become a prison when it remains after the danger has passed. I am not condemning you for the ways you coped. I am inviting you to choose healthier ways of living. You no longer need to punish yourself for what happened. You do not need to sabotage good things because they feel unfamiliar. You do not need to shrink your hopes so disappointment cannot reach them. You do not need to remain constantly busy in order to avoid what your heart needs to face. Bring these patterns into the light without shame. What you are willing to acknowledge can begin to change. What you continue to hide will continue to influence you. Guard your mind carefully during this transition. Not every voice deserves your attention. Some people speak from their own fear and call it wisdom. Some will project their disappointment onto your possibilities. Some may question your growth because your change disrupts the version of you they found convenient. You do not need to argue with them. You do not need to explain every decision or defend every boundary. Let your peace become more valuable than their approval. Listen for the voices that produce clarity, honesty, humility, and courage. Distance yourself from voices that constantly stir panic, confusion, guilt, or self-doubt. Keep your heart close to me through prayer, reflection, and truth. Do not allow distraction to steal your focus just as you begin moving forward. My child, release is not emptiness. Every burden you surrender creates room for something healthier. Every boundary you establish protects the peace being restored within you. Every old pattern you confront weakens the hold of the past. I am not stripping your life of what is valuable. I am separating you from what has kept you bound. You do not have to carry every memory, every offense, every fear, and every relationship into what comes next. Lay them down. Let the past remain behind you. You are not losing yourself by releasing these things. You are finally making room to become whole. My beloved child, the restoration unfolding in your life is not meant to end with you. I am not bringing you out of difficulty simply so you can feel relief, enjoy comfort, and return to living only for yourself. I am healing what was wounded, restoring what was depleted, and strengthening what became weak, because your life carries a purpose greater than your private desires. The peace I am placing within you will become the peace you carry into anxious rooms. The wisdom you gain through hardship will help you recognize what others cannot yet see. The compassion formed through your own suffering will enable you to sit beside people whose pain makes others uncomfortable. What you have received from me is meant to move through you, not stop with you. You once wondered why your journey required so much endurance, why you had to learn lessons that seemed harsher than those faced by others, and why your heart had to become familiar with disappointment, loneliness, and uncertainty. You may not have chosen those experiences, but they have given you a depth that comfort alone could never produce. You now understand what it feels like to pray without immediate answers, to smile while carrying private sorrow, and to continue when your strength is nearly gone. Because you know these things, you will recognize the hidden battles within people who appear composed. You will hear what is not spoken. You will notice the person who has become quiet, the one who feels excluded, and the one who is trying to remain strong while slowly losing hope. Your sensitivity is not weakness. When guided by wisdom, it becomes part of your calling. I am not asking you to rescue everyone or carry responsibilities that belong to others. I am teaching you how to offer light without losing yourself, how to serve without becoming depleted, and how to love without abandoning healthy boundaries. Your purpose will not require you to return to the patterns from which you have been freed. It will require you to use what you have learned with maturity. There is a difference between helping someone and taking control of their journey. There is a difference between compassion and constant self-sacrifice. You can offer encouragement without becoming responsible for every outcome. You can stand beside someone without carrying what only they can surrender. The stronger you become in your identity, the more freely you will be able to give without needing appreciation, recognition, or repayment. I am preparing you to bring hope into places where despair has become normal. You may enter conversations where people have forgotten how to believe that life can change. You may encounter families repeating the same destructive patterns from one generation to the next. You may be given influence among people who have learned to hide pain beneath success, humor, anger, or silence. In those moments, you will not need impressive words. Your steadiness will speak, your patience will speak, the way you listen without judgment will speak, the way you remain truthful without becoming cruel will speak, the way you protect peace without withdrawing love will speak. Your life will show that healing does not erase a person's history, but it changes the authority that history holds over the future. I am also calling you to interrupt patterns that have traveled through your family for far too long. You have seen how fear can pass from one generation to another, how silence can protect dysfunction, and how unresolved pain can shape homes, marriages, finances, and relationships. You have seen people repeat what wounded them because no one showed them another way. You are not responsible for changing every person in your family, but you are responsible for the choices you make from this point forward. The cycle can begin to weaken through the way you speak, the boundaries you establish, the forgiveness you practice, and the values you model. You can create a home where honesty is safer than pretending, where love is not used as a weapon, and where people are not required to earn basic dignity. You can teach those who come after you that strength does not mean hiding pain, that humility does not mean accepting mistreatment, and that faith does not require ignoring wisdom. The legacy you build will not be measured only by possessions, achievements, or status. It will be measured by the emotional and spiritual environment you leave behind. I may place greater resources, opportunities, and influence into your hands, but these things will carry responsibility. Provision is not merely a reward, it is also a trust. When you have more than you need, remember the days when you understood what it meant to have little. Let gratitude protect you from pride. Let wisdom guide your generosity. Do not give carelessly in order to be admired, and do not withhold because you fear there will never be enough. Learn to manage what I place before you with discipline, patience, and integrity. The blessing is not only what enters your hands. The blessing is also becoming someone who can handle it without allowing it to corrupt your heart. If I expand your influence, remain teachable. If I open significant doors, remember the quiet seasons when no one applauded you. If people begin to respect your voice, do not use that voice to make others feel small. Authority without humility becomes dangerous, but authority guided by compassion can bring order, healing, and courage. You do not need to prove your importance. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to what has been entrusted to you. Some assignments will appear ordinary. Your purpose may be expressed in the way you raise a child, care for a family member, lead a team, encourage a friend, create honest work, or remain patient with someone who is struggling. Do not assume that purpose must always be public to be meaningful. A life can change because of one sincere conversation. A family can begin healing because one person chooses to stop repeating a harmful response. A discouraged heart can recover because someone notices and remains present. Much of the work I do through you may never receive public recognition, but it will still matter. The value of your service is not determined by how many people see it. I am forming within you the ability to carry both blessing and responsibility without being controlled by either. You will learn to receive with gratitude, serve with wisdom, lead with humility, and give without losing your center. The restored parts of your life will become evidence that change is possible, but your greatest influence will come from the way you live after restoration begins. People will watch how you respond when you are trusted, how you treat others when you have authority, and whether success makes you more generous or more distant. Let your growth make you kinder, not harder. Let your freedom make you compassionate, not proud. Let your understanding of pain make you a safe place for truth. My beloved child, What I am placing within you is not for display, it is for service. You are being prepared to become a steady presence in an unstable world, a voice of hope in moments of despair, and a living reminder that suffering does not have to be the end of anyone's story. Your restoration has meaning beyond your own comfort. It is becoming a doorway through which healing, wisdom, and hope can reach the lives connected to yours. My beloved child, you have seen how I was present in your suffering, how the waiting shaped you, how change began moving through your life, how freedom required release, and how restoration was connected to a purpose greater than your own comfort. Now I want you to understand the truth that brings all of these things together. You are not disqualified by what you have survived. The parts of your story you have tried hardest to hide are not beyond my reach, and the wounds that once caused you to question your worth do not have the authority to define your future. For years, you may have looked at your failures, weaknesses, disappointments, and scars as evidence that something was permanently wrong with you. You compared yourself with people whose lives seemed more complete, whose choices appeared wiser, or whose paths looked less complicated. You wondered whether I could truly use someone with your history. You feared that your mistakes had reduced what was possible for you, and that your broken places made you less valuable in my sight. But you have misunderstood the way I work. I do not wait for perfect people before entrusting them with purpose. I work through those who have learned humility, compassion, endurance, and dependence through what they have endured. Perfection would never teach you how to sit beside someone who is ashamed. A life untouched by sorrow could not fully understand the person who is grieving. Someone who has never struggled may offer advice, but the person who has walked through darkness can offer presence, patience, and hope. Your scars are not proof that you were defeated. They are evidence that the wound did not end your story. You are still here. You are still capable of loving, learning, growing, and becoming. What tried to silence you did not succeed. What attempted to bury your hope did not destroy it. What made you feel small did not erase the purpose placed within you. You do not need to deny the damage or pretend the pain was beautiful. Some experiences were unfair. Some choices brought real consequences. Some people acted without compassion, and some seasons left marks that will always remain part of your history. Healing does not require you to rename what happened. It requires you to stop believing that what happened has the final right to name you. You are not only the person who was rejected, betrayed, overlooked, or abandoned. You are also the person who endured, learned, forgave, rebuilt, and continued. You are not only the person who made mistakes. You are the person who became honest enough to face them, humble enough to grow from them, and courageous enough to choose differently. Your worst moment is not your permanent identity. Your deepest weakness is not the limit of what I can do through your life. There may still be a voice within you saying that you should wait until you feel completely confident, fully healed, or entirely prepared before stepping forward. That voice will keep moving the finish line. Confidence often develops after obedience begins, not before it. Healing can continue while you walk. Growth does not end when purpose begins. You do not have to become flawless in order to become useful. You only need to remain honest, teachable, and willing to follow where I lead. Your dependence on me is not a defect. It is what keeps your heart grounded when strength, opportunity, or influence increases. The places where you know you are weak can become the places where you listen most carefully, pray most sincerely, and treat others most gently. Stop apologizing for every scar as though your survival requires an explanation. You do not owe the world a polished version of your history. You do not need to turn every wound into a public story, but neither must you live as though your past makes you unworthy of being seen. There is wisdom in privacy, but there is bondage in shame. Shame tells you to hide because exposure will lead to rejection. Truth teaches you that your worth does not depend on appearing untouched. You can be both wounded and growing, imperfect and faithful, still learning and deeply loved. These realities do not contradict one another. They reveal that transformation is alive within you. I am not asking you to glorify your suffering. I am asking you to recognize what it produced. You understand patience because you had to wait. You understand courage because you continued while afraid. You understand mercy because you needed it. You understand restoration because you know what it feels like to lose hope. These qualities were not formed in theory. They were formed in the places where life demanded more from you than you believed you could give. The pain did not create your value, but it uncovered capacities that had remained hidden. What once felt like evidence of ruin can now become a doorway through which others discover that they are not beyond recovery. There is one final surrender I am asking of you. Release your timeline. You have spent years measuring your life against dates, expectations, and imagined deadlines. You thought certain things should have happened by now. You believed you would be further ahead, more settled, or more certain. Each time reality failed to match the schedule in your mind, disappointment deepened. But your life is not late. The years of preparation were not empty years. The lessons, healing, maturity, and discernment formed within them cannot be measured by visible milestones alone. Stop fighting the clock as though time has become your enemy. Trust that the next step can still be meaningful, even if it arrives differently from what you once imagined. Surrender does not mean becoming passive. It means releasing the demand that everything must happen according to your preferred order before you can have peace. Walk faithfully with what is in front of you. Let tomorrow unfold without allowing fear to write its ending in advance. My beloved child, rise from the identity that pain assigned to you. You are not a victim waiting for life to decide your worth. You are not a forgotten person standing outside the future. You are someone who has been carried, formed, restored, and entrusted with hope. Walk forward without pretending you have no scars. Carry them with humility, knowing they remind you of what you survived and of the grace that sustained you. Let your life speak gently to those who believe they are too damaged to begin again. Let your courage remind them that weakness does not cancel purpose. Let your honesty show them that healing is possible without perfection. Remain close to me, remain compassionate toward others, and remain willing to keep growing. The season behind you has taught you what it needed to teach. The life ahead will require everything you have learned. Step into it without shame, without apology, and without returning to the identity you have outgrown. You have been seen, prepared, restored, freed, and called. Now arise and become a living witness that brokenness is not the end, waiting is not wasted, and a life surrendered to me can still become a source of light.